so we can start the session. Welcome, welcome, welcome to this training session for the secretary role. And I would like to do some housekeeping rules just so everybody's aware. I will ask if you would be so kind to chat, put your questions in the chat. And throughout the presentation, Lucy will give you opportunity to ask questions as needed. If not, towards the end, we'll have some more time for more in-depth questions. And just to introduce a little bit of myself and who I am, for those who do not know me, my name is Carmel Lee, and I am currently the VPE for the Blue Streak Club, which is a corporate club. And I have the great honor of facilitating this session today for Ms. Lucy Stec, who's going to be presenting this session today. And at this time, I would like to give you a little bit overview of who she is. Ms. Lucy joined the Daniel Island Toastmasters in 2018 and has held the office of VPE and is now the secretary. She especially enjoys the challenge of writing and delivering speeches. Even though she is retired and no longer interested in career development, Toastmasters have been a great fit for helping her meet her goals, learn about new ideas, engage with new people. She's originally from West Virginia and has lived in South Carolina for 23 years. She is a graduate of theology and English literature from Georgetown University and has a master's in religious education. Most of her career was spent with Best Doctors, where she managed the research and editing departments. She now spends her time reading, gardening, creating pottery, and enjoying Toastmasters. She also spends a lot of time enjoying her two grandsons. Please welcome Ms. Lucy Stec, presenting the secretary.
Thank you very much, Carmel. I certainly appreciate all the effort that you're making, the time you've given, and the help that you've given to me to get ready for this presentation. I want to open just by saying that we are all Toastmasters, and most of us are secretaries. Some of us have held different offices, we're longtime Toastmasters, and some of us are brand new secretaries just this year. The presentation today, I'm going to give you all of the official duties and responsibilities and resources for being a secretary. Every club is unique, and some of those duties may be done by someone else in your club, and that's fine. As a secretary, you should just make sure that your duties are being fulfilled by someone, and ask if they're happy doing it. Because if it's a burden for them to do a secretary's job, then you can help your club, help the other officer, and help yourself learn and grow by taking on that responsibility as your own as secretary. This is the presentation about being secretary. First of all, thank you for being here. The importance of being a secretary is that you keep the equilibrium of the club. You're making sure that everything that happens in the club is noted and recorded and available to people who need to be reminded, who need to find out something they didn't know, and you can pass that on to the next secretary. Thank you for the time you're contributing. You're here and you give your time to your clubs inside and outside of your meetings. Thank you for being open to learning, whether you're a new secretary or one who's been secretary before. And thank you for your dedication to Toastmasters. The agenda, we'll look at the secretary role, secretary responsibilities, and the secretary resources. The objectives of today: identify your role. You need to know what it is you're doing, fulfill your responsibilities, and then find resources that help you do that. The secretary role is simple. It's being a secretary, and it requires you to fulfill some secretary responsibilities. And we'll look at those in three pieces: in the club meeting, outside the club meeting, and during executive committee meetings. The club meeting involves a lot, as those of you who are secretaries now know. Before the meeting, at the meeting, during the meeting, after the meeting, you are on call to be the secretary, to be the host, to be present as an officer at the meeting. Before the meeting, you can post the minutes. I'm in a Zoom club. I post the minutes on our Toast host. You can post them on whatever electronic site it is that you have. Prepare, and if you're in person meetings, you'll probably post it in your electronic site anyway, or you can post it on the wall as people come in the meeting. You'll prepare a list of actions for the president, maybe to remind the president to make a particular announcement or to address a certain issue, and update the club's officer list. Upon arrival at club meetings, you want to circulate attendance sheet and guest book. You're responsible for keeping the attendance and knowing who the guests are so that the VP of membership can greet those guests and ask and get to know them and ask them to be a part of the club. Or you can just record the data from your Zoom meeting. Read the previous minutes and note amendments. Again, my club is very small. We're just a tiny little group. And I don't read the previous minutes because I know people have seen them on the website. I've never had an amendment except one time when I transposed some times of different speakers and I made that change. And record the current meeting minutes. This piece is essential to what you're doing. You have to keep track of what is happening in the club, and so much of what happens in the club is recorded in the minutes. I use this form that I got from Sharon Arnold, who passed it to me. Toastmasters are great at sharing their information so that jobs are made easier. And I can just tab from field to field. I've gotten so I can just do it while the meeting is going on, make a few notes and improvements when it's over, and I have my meetings done. And the minutes of the club format that's found in the official Toastmasters website includes more information about using the Robert's Rules of Order. If your club is a large club and you follow that format, this is the format for you. Outside the club meetings, maintain accurate roster, submit club officer lists, handle correspondence, keep the club files, attend club executive committee meetings, and we'll talk about all of these more in depth. To maintain an accurate roster, you can just go to toastmasters.org to the Club Central, and these three things that I've circled are what you'll need to maintain your roster. The club roster is where you'll see all of your club members and information about them, and a nice piece on that site is that you can move it into an Excel document and get even more information about your members. One I like is when they joined. That's a helpful piece of information to have. When you add a member, you can go to the club membership and add a member itself. It's very intuitive, adding a member. Not all of Toastmasters.org is, not all Pathways program is intuitive, but this one really is. And so is the club officer assignment. Our treasurer takes some of these responsibilities. Like I said, different clubs have different people doing things that are the secretary's job. He's happy to do that. It's easy for him to do. And so there's time. Handling correspondence included for you from this meeting is a stationery for you to use and make your own. I keep club files, and this looks scary, but it shows me at each meeting who was there and what they did and how many were present, and any notes about guests or about the meeting. It just makes it easy for me. It looks scary. If you want it, you can use it. If your VPE already does this, ask if maybe you can do it as a backup, or maybe you don't need to do it at all. And these two will be available to you. Outside the club meeting, you still have work to do: voting at international business meetings, facilitating members' progress in base camp. You as a secretary are a base camp manager, so you can get to know the base camp from that point of view. Arrange for your replacement or assistance. Be sure if you're not going to be there, remember what happens in the meetings goes into the minutes and keeps the record of what the club is doing and is about to do. So make sure you have a replacement and send your replacement the format that you use and have them get it back to you for your files. If you do all of those things, stay up to date with your rosters and prepare and your minutes. Preparing your successor for office should be very simple. Facilitating meeting member progress can be done from Basecamp. As I said, this is what the page looks like. And again, we can look at that at the end. The executive committee, you have some responsibilities there as an officer, reading the previous meeting minutes and noting amendments and recording the current meeting minutes, just as you do in your club meetings. And there is in Toastmasters.org a format for, excuse me, just one second. How are you going to fulfill these responsibilities? How are you going to even remember what they all are? When will each action be completed and who is available to help you and what resources are available? First of all, how will you fill this responsibility? The primary and the best source for this is the Club Leadership Handbook. In it, you will find all it is that you need to know in a very succinct way. This is what it says, basically. You're to take minutes. And the page gives you the items that you need to record in your minutes so that you know that you're doing it properly and getting all the information you need. Maintain files as a secretary, and the Leadership Handbook tells you what records and items there are that you need to keep. As I said, other people in your club may be doing these things. The president of our club has all of the records for the chartering and getting things started because she was there and she kept them, and it's just safe in her hands rather than passing them from secretary to secretary. One thing I do want to do is to get some electronic versions, some scanned copies of those documents, to have them in my files as the secretary so that I have them in a safekeeping in an electronic fashion as the secretary should. But I don't have to do that. I know that we have them. The secretary reports new officers. You do that at Club Central. And you're a base camp manager. As secretary, you can be a manager and go in and help keep track of what's going on in your club. When will each action be completed? Who is available to help you? Go over these things. Look back at what these responsibilities are and take them one by one. Take minutes. When you do that is obvious. Who can help you? Think about, can the previous secretary give you some pointers on taking minutes? Are there people who can take pieces of the minutes for a while until you get used to it? I had a terrible time with minutes until I got that format from Sharon, and then it was easy as pie. Who's going to help you maintain files? When are you going to do that? Are you going to do that every month? Are you going to do that every week? How often do you need to take a look at that and then make a commitment to do it then? Reporting new officers generally happens just at election time, but sometimes someone may leave and you need to report the new officer in the middle. And base camp manager, how much do you need to use that? Talk to your VPE. How much do you need to use, be a base camp manager, and what do you need to be looking for and watching for? And your VPE may want your help, and your VPE may say, no, I've got it, no sense in spending time on that. The materials and resources that you can use are essential. Use these often. And I've made a list here in this slide and the next slide of resources that are available easily. In Toastmasters.org, get to know what's in there. It took me a while to get used to, particularly the pathways. And I just stuck to it and worked with it by trial and error, sometimes by looking at instructions, sometimes by talking to other people. And I can manage it now and maneuver in pathways pretty easily and find what it is I need to know. You're the base camp manager. You can look there for accurate progress data. And as I said, the club leadership handbook is vital to you. The club officer agreement and release statement has never been used in my club. I don't know if it's been used in any of your clubs or not, but it's kind of a nice thing to commit to and on paper. So you might take a look at that. And I did the club officer self-evaluation. I didn't even know it was in there until I was just messing around. And it was very, very helpful to me. It helped me to kind of get grounded in what the job involved and to see where I think I can do a good job and where I may need some improvement. So you might take a look at that. And this takes a minute and kind of get yourself in the right frame of mind for doing an excellent job as secretary by knowing where your weaknesses might be and where your strengths are. The Distinguished Club Program and Club Success Plan are something that you'll work on in your executive committees, and the website is there for that to take a look at it. The leader letter comes in your email, and I hadn't noticed it until just recently, to tell you the truth, and it tells you what's kind of going on at Toastmasters. So you have an idea of the bigger picture of Toastmasters. Just a nice thing to do as an officer and as a committed participant in your club. Leadership Central and Club Central for your administrative records, and the Toastmasters magazine. I don't read the whole magazine. I mean, I confess, I don't read the whole magazine, but I will look through to see if there are articles that are particularly interesting to me as a member and as an officer, and also perhaps for an article that maybe the club or other officers might be interested in, and just forward it to them as say, this might be interesting or fun for you to read. Google Toastmasters secretary and see what comes up. You'll find that other clubs have posted information about how their secretaries operate, forms that they use, little tips that they have. It can be an important way to find tips that you don't find otherwise. The Parliamentary Procedure in a nutshell. This is the Rogers Rules of Order, if your club uses them. That's a website where Iowa State has put that into a nice, compact, succinct information that you don't have to read the whole book. I liked it a lot. And there are templates that you're getting as a result of being a participant in this meeting: the club minutes, the secretary data file, the paths matrix, and the Toastmasters letterhead. And always remember that other Toastmasters are a great resource. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Talk to your other officers. Whoops, that's shame. Talk to other officers. Talk to the other members. What is it they need to see? What is it they wanted to see in the minutes because they didn't quite get it in the meeting and then it wasn't there? Make sure your members are happy with what you're doing, that they're getting from you what they need to get from you. And if it's not your responsibility to do that for your members, tell them that you'll find out who should be doing it and make sure that it happens. And then talk to that individual. Always be a good club member. If that individual just simply can't do that, take it on as the secretary or get someone else to do it. Make sure your members, as an officer, that your members are getting what they need. Attend your district-sponsored club officer training program, which is what you're doing right now. Thank you. Read materials, and I've just given you some materials, You'll find other materials, or you already know of other materials. Read those. Meet with the outgoing executive committee, meet with the outgoing secretary, meet with current executive committee. Those are all things that are easy to do. And as I said, if you are staying current, you're keeping that roster up, you're keeping the officers updated, you're taking the minutes, you're filing the papers, you're knowledgeable about what it is your club needs, then when it comes time to pass on to the next secretary, you'll be in good shape. All you'll have to do is let them have what you have and take over. They may want to do it a little bit different way, but what you've done has given them the start that they need, and you can say to yourself, I've done a good job as secretary, and this next person will benefit from what I've done. It's a good feeling. Confirm the submission of the newly elected officers list. When officers are elected and you put them in the Club Central, there's a way to confirm that with International. My treasurer does that and is happy to do that. So I can't give you information on how to do that, but I believe that it is in the Club Central where you submit the officers. Is there anybody who knows that for sure? Okay, Minnie, thank you. And review and order any needed materials. If your club wants to have pamphlets, if your club wants to have the little buttons that you can put on, anything that your club would like to have, you're responsible for ordering those, and you can do it right through Toastmasters.org. So our session objectives were to identify your role, fulfill your responsibilities, find resources that help you, and we'll make sure that your questions are answered. I'd like to just read this quote that I have before we start our discussion. We start out in Toastmasters with the goal of learning to be better speakers, communicators, and leaders. Eventually, the purpose becomes helping other new members in our clubs in those same pursuits. There's a shift that happens the longer you're a member, that the real purpose of Toastmasters is to help others and to make the world a better place. And you can do that by giving of yourself. And you are doing that by giving of yourself. You're helping others, and you're making the world a better place by helping others and giving to your community of Toastmasters. And that concludes my part of the session. I'd like to open us up to questions, and I'm going to begin, since we don't have any questions yet. Please go ahead and unmute yourselves. No, send a question into the chat, please, and Carmel will monitor those. I want to ask you first, what do you find to be the most difficult part of being the secretary? For me, as I said in the session, taking the minutes was difficult for me. I'd never taken minutes before, and having the resource from Carmel was such a blessing. So send Carmel what you found to be the most difficult parts of your being secretary of your club.
While we get some feedback on that question you asked, Lucy, we have another question that was asked by Monica. And she was wondering if you know how many terms you are allowed to serve as secretary. Mm-hmm. I guess that needs to be concurrent terms. I mean,
I have not heard that there's a limit on that. Does anyone know otherwise on that?
Minnie, do you know? I see you trying to unmute yourself.
Oh, there is no limit. However, I would hope that you have other aspirations. I know of a person who was president consistently 3 times, and another person who was secretary 5 times because they were comfortable in that role. But I would recommend that you, I got my R in, please do not get comfortable to whereas you cannot grow.
Thank you, Minnie. That is very.
This is Valerie Williams. I've been secretary for, well, we elect officers every 6 months, so probably for the last 3 terms. And it's not because I'm comfortable in the position, although I am. No one else will run for that particular office. And I think it has something to do, we have a VPE who's very good in his job, but who also likes to be very good in everyone else's job. So you have to have the temperament to be able to work with him. And after several, how do I put this, run-ins, we get along well now. Yeah, he goes over the minutes with a fine-tooth comb to the point where he'll insert commas and things like that. And yeah, not just the important stuff like the speech title and the time and things like that.
Right.
And on some level, I appreciate that, but on others, it can be a bit daunting to deal with. But we've learned how to get along and respect each other's boundaries. I had to set some boundaries with him. So sometimes it's not just being comfortable, it's really, if you don't do it really and truly, I said, no, I'm not doing it. And no one else stepped up. And we have, well, right now we have 18 members.
Well, Valerie, congratulations on being a great Toastmaster and working it out with this fella. That's what we're about, is working together. So congratulations. Good for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, working with people in any kind of capacity can be hard, but you're absolutely right. I do see your hand, Ross. I'm going to ask these other questions that came in, and then I'll give you the floor to ask your question. The question I have right now is, are all club members able to access the club officer meetings minutes? Or
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, sure. In fact, when we have executive meetings, a lot of times any member that wants to come is invited. So sure, yeah, you have access. You have access.
Great.
I'm sorry, I want to make a comment on that. In some past clubs that I have visited, the president has asked to review the minutes in its entirety before it's released to the other officers and members. What are your thoughts on that? I'm sorry, I'm asking our presenter. I'm got to go back to your name. I'm sorry.
I thought you were opening it up.
No, ma'am.
I don't do that. It's not a bad idea, I guess, but I send out the minutes to everyone in the club. I try to send them out the day or the next day after the meeting. And I always, in the body of the email, say, if you have any corrections, comments, additions to the minutes, please let me know. And that I've never gotten any negative feedback on that.
Because I've had the president, I'm sorry, I've had the president, I'm not good with this hand raising on my iPad, and it's about to die if I go out. But I just plugged it back up again. But however, the president says, allow me to be the one to send the minutes. And of course, that's a chain of command that you have to endure. So I didn't know whether anybody else had experienced that or not.
Anybody?
I have a follow-up question based on that. And the question is, where should the minutes be uploaded to? And is there someone in the club who needs to be assigned to proof the information before the minutes is posted? Is there something that's specifically on the Toastmasters website, or where would they find that exact place to upload it?
Do any of you use Toast Host?
We use free Toast Host.
Yeah, we have an application that we use. I send out the minutes. It turns out that our president posts them on Toast just because she started doing it and she continued to do it. I, as secretary, should ask her if she wants to continue to do that, because that's really my job. So you have to have some kind of format that you're using, like Toast or Facebook, something, some place to do that, and then whoever is in charge of that show you how to get them posted on there. Does that answer your question?
I believe it would. Some other things I would add to that is to some corporate clubs, or even some community clubs, have a central repository on a Google Drive, and that will then send out a link where those can be accessed from too. But if not, you can always access or speak to any of your officers, and they'll be able to let you know where you can access those minutes. If not, you need to find a central location to keep those for future reference. It becomes quite important when you need to make sure people has, if you're submitting the awards as a VPE, or if you want to give out ribbons, all those kind of things, is important to be able to have a record, to be, if there's any questions. Like anything in life, it's not a problem until there is an issue with it, right? And that's the reason why we take the minutes.
Right. And if your club doesn't have an online site, an online presence, just keep the minutes, send them out to everyone, and do, by some mechanism, make sure that they're correct, that nobody has any changes to make, and then keep them in your files as reference. And that's pretty much what you were saying, Carmel. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
At this time, I would like to give Roz the floor to ask his question.
Yes, I have several. One, we have on Toast the file manager section in which we store our minutes.
Mhm.
But my main question was, what do you obtain from Basecamp in order to assist you with your record of what is going? Do you go to each individual member to get what level they are as far as in their path, and what other things do you do?
Right. I was VPE before I was secretary, and I used the Basecamp manager a lot, and I've just continued to keep it. Your VPE may not want you or need you to keep track of where people are in their paths. I do it because I feel like that record needs to be with the secretary, and it's a backup for our VPE if she is confused or misses something. We can compare our notes. Are you asking how you get to that place in Basecamp?
In a way, yes. I haven't done that except for
Okay.
myself, so that can be done relative to any other members in the club.
Yes, it can. Let me
While you pull it up, so as your club secretary, VP, or president, you are the only who's able to approve when you reach a new path where you finish the level, and you can then go into both your into Club Central to add that award, and then also go into I forgot the word now. Anyway, to be able to accept that award and say yes, so it can be recorded onto your distinguished Toastmaster program. Do you have it open, Lucy? Would you like me to share?
It's coming up right now, and I'll share my screen.
While you have that going, and I'm just going to go ahead and read the question, and then once we looked at that, we can follow on.
Okay.
And this question is coming from Eileen, and the question is quite good. It says, how do you balance your Toastmaster role with obligations among family, work, personal life, etc.?
That's a good question, and I don't know that I would be able to give an answer any better than anyone else here. I'm retired. My children are grown. I have grandchildren I love to spend time with, and I have my hobbies that I love to do. Being secretary is much less time consuming than being VPE. So I've moved from something that took a lot more of my attention than secretary is taking. I get up in the morning, a lot of times before my husband gets up, I'll use that time and I'll schedule a time to work on it. I'll tell my husband after lunch, I'm going to spend some time with Toastmasters. It's easy for me. Does anybody else have any suggestions of how they manage their time?
Do you want to continue sharing your screen?
This is Barbara, and I would like to just respond to that. I have been doing the minutes as a secretary for a couple of years. However, I don't have the format that you had introduced a moment ago.
Hmm?
I would like to have that. I find that I was spending a lot of time preparing minutes, in fact, putting a little bit more than I should have put into it.
Mhm.
But I need to minimize that because it is very, very time consuming. Even though I like detailed information, I provided that to our people. I have not been putting it anywhere other than in an email to them
Mhm.
and keeping my own records.
Right.
No one ever told me that I needed to post it anywhere if it's ever needed. I haven't known anyone to say that it's needed afterwards. Our VP do
As I said,
most of what you said.
everyone's club is unique. And if you don't post it on a site or post it on paper at a location and your club never has done that, that's fine. As long as everybody gets to see the meetings, send them through email and keep a record, you're in good shape. Are you asking about the format that I use that I showed you a few minutes ago?
Yeah, the forms and so forth. You said they will be with, I guess, the handouts when they come through. So I'll look at
Right.
that when that takes place. Again, there's a speaker form that's used that we normally use that they're supposed to indicate their path on. That was one of the things that I was providing, even though it was in addition to our VPE's information. But most of our members don't even put that in. They normally tell you what project they're working on and that's it. But
I'll tell you what I do. I send them an email and ask them what it was. And I just do that over and over with the individuals who don't let us know until my hope is that they'll start doing it. But I think it's so important to get that information in the minutes. So
yes.
yeah, people don't
Yeah.
keep track of what they're doing and we can help them with that.
Yeah.
Back to this Basecamp manager. If you go into Basecamp, which I hope everybody knows how to do, you just go in as Basecamp manager, log in there, and as secretary, you should be set up to do that.
I'm sharing my screen just so you can, and I'll run through.
Oh,
This is Peggy. So I'm thinking Basecamp manager is one of those that secretary is probably secondary, right?
Correct.
Because the VPE is, since they are in charge of education, that is their primary role.
that's right. That's right.
But but the VPE can't approve his or her own speeches, so the secretary or the president needs to know how to do that role also.
Carmel,
I just want to confirm that answered Russ's question before we proceed. Russ, can you?
You have identified just getting in. Now you go in as the Basecamp manager, and then
right.
you can go to each individual
Yes, I can
member
show
of
you
the
just
club.
a second. Carmel, can I take the screen?
Absolutely, go for it. You say, just request,
If you'll stop sharing the screen.
oh, excuse me.
And
And just while she's sharing her screen, is just as a reminder, I did put the link in the comments for where the documents and files are at. So that
Oh, great.
please let me know if you have problems accessing that. I know there's a question from Minnie, and I will get that asked shortly.
Okay. When you go to Basecamp Manager, you will see a search field. Can you see my cursor moving?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Yes.
Don't go to member progress if you want to look at an individual. It gives you a lot of graphs telling what members have done. I'll be honest, I've not found them helpful, but take a look at them. You may find them to be a helpful resource. But if you push into the search, let me see. Andrew Oakes gave me permission to use him as an example. It pulls up his camp profile. And I can go to Paths and Learning for Andrew and see that he's working in presentation mastery, and open his curriculum and see where he is in that. He's halfway through of level 2. It's not information you need to have as secretary. It's information to know that you can get it and to help out the VPE. Obviously, I help the VPE some. You may not do that at all, and that's fine.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
And then we had some great comments coming about things, how to, when we had the question from Eileen, how to balance your Toastmasters role of obligations among family, work, and personal. And we had a comment from Kristen saying she blocks time on a calendar for specific secretary tasks and focus on only that during that time. The difficulties is being a speaker or evaluator while trying to take meeting minutes. And that's when you need to make use of that network and ask someone else to help you out, whether it's the president or VP or someone else in the meeting to assist you with that. But you're absolutely right, Kristen. It is difficult filling, the duties of secretary and filling a role.
Thank you.
I have a form much like the one that Lucy displayed. It's a little different, but all I need to do is go in and fill in the different roles for that particular meeting. And most of the time it takes me 10 minutes tops to get the minutes done. That format, using a form is really helpful.
Thank you,
Okay,
Valerie.
Carmel,
Minnie, yes. Minnie, would you please ask a question regarding the form?
I know time is gone. Yes, Sharon was able to, that's a nice form. I commend Sharon on the form. But when she sends it, and Lucy and Carmel, please make sure it's not protected. It was protected and I haven't been able to use it the last 6 months. So what I did, I developed my own form that I've used, and the president accepted it, and I've got everything in. Matter of fact, I have a tendency to be a little detailed. I've added a lot that would benefit them, but to the point, send that nice form, but please unprotect it. I could not use it because it was protected. Thank you.
Thanks very much. That's a good point. We need to be sure people can use the resources we give them.
And just to,
And I would like Lucy's form, Carmel. Will you please email that to us?
Lucy, I'm going to share my screen just to show everybody where the forms are at. So,
Okay.
if you guys will click on a link that's inside the chat, it should take you to the following Google Drive. Lucy, is there any of these documents you want me to open up and share specifically?
I would like to do that, but I'm afraid we're out of time, aren't we? How
We
are
are
we
running
doing?
it close to time, yes. At this time, I would like to also put in the chat the survey for everybody to complete about this session. Please feel free to do so. You can do it now as soon as we go into the other session. It is here. It literally is one question.
Before you do that, Carmel, I have put into the chat my contact information. Don't hesitate to let me know if for whatever reason you can't get what you want to get in terms of the handouts. Let me know and I'll get them to you. Thanks very much. I appreciate all of your attention, your questions and your comments, and I hope that longtime secretaries and officers have helped us a lot in this meeting, and new secretaries, I hope that you have learned something about what you need to know and where to find answers if you don't know them. Thank you very much.